Commanders, here's what no one else will tell you. While others talk about playoffs and dream of magical seasons, we've just suffered a devastating blow that could completely change our 2025. A $31 million defender lost for the season, and on top of that, we have to face one of the most lethal tight ends in the entire NFL in just 2 days. Are we ready for the perfect storm that's upon us? I'm telling you, this week is not just another game. This is the week where we find out if we really have what it takes to compete at the highest level, or if we're just another team that promised much but couldn't deliver when times got tough. And let me tell you something. After analyzing these 3 breaking stories, I believe we're at a critical moment that few are truly grasping. Stay tuned to the end, because I'll explain exactly why these moves can make or break not just this week, but our entire season. And at the end, I'll ask you the question that all true Washington fans need to answer right now if we want to be honest about our real possibilities. The bomb dropped, and no one was ready for the impact. Fellow Commanders, Dietrich, our veteran defensive end and one of the cornerstones of our defensive line, got injured in Week 2 against Green Bay, and his season is completely over. But let me explain why this loss is far more catastrophic than most people are understanding. Wise wasn't just another player on the roster. This man represented $31 million of investment, but more importantly than the money, he was the kind of veteran who set the defensive tone from the first snap to the last. Joe Witt Jr., our defensive coordinator, couldn't hide the magnitude of this loss when he spoke to the media, and his words revealed much more than he might have wanted to admit. Dietrich, on and off the field, is one of those professional guys I'm talking about, who's always studying, the first guy to arrive at the building, said Witt. Do you know what that really means? We're not just talking about losing athletic talent. We're losing leadership. We're losing the mindset that infects the rest of the defensive group. I've seen enough football to know that when you lose a veteran leader like that, especially one who establishes work ethic and mental preparation, the domino effect can be devastating. Wise was that type of player who arrived early, stayed late, and made younger players understand what it means to be a professional in this league. But let's go beyond the emotional aspect and analyze the real tactical impact. Wise was fundamental to our defensive scheme in multiple aspects. Witt described him as a solid factor in the run game, setting the edges, and this is crucial to understanding why his loss is so devastating. In modern NFL, if you can't control the edges against the run, teams are going to destroy you with sweeps, tosses, and outside run stop. Do you remember how we looked against Green Bay? We were already having trouble containing the runs, and that was with Wise on the field for part of the game. Now imagine what's going to happen when teams realize we don't have the same physical presence on the edge. They're going to attack that weakness over and over until we find a real solution. And in the passing game, Wise was also a key piece to push the pocket, as Witt said. This means he not only generated direct pressure on the quarterback, but he also collapsed the pocket from his position, forcing the QB to move to where other pass rushers could do their work. Without that coordinated pressure, our complete pass rush is compromised. Now, the team's response was to bring back Preston Smith, and let me tell you, this move is fascinating for multiple reasons. Smith played here from 2015 to 2018, then went to Green Bay for 6 years where he found quite a bit of success, had a short stint with Pittsburgh, and now returns to Washington hoping to help us in our most critical hour. But do you know what intrigues me about this move? Smith is not young. We're talking about a veteran with a decade in the league, someone who's seen it all in this sport. But he's also someone coming from a completely different system in Pittsburgh, needing time to reacclimate to our defensive scheme, and needing to get into game shape after not being with a team for a while. Witt was very honest about expectations. Preston is very new to the group, and Jason Simmons has history with him. They were together in Green Bay, but he's a veteran player, so we just have to make sure he's in shape, ready to learn the system. This statement tells me several important things. First, that Simmons, our defensive pass coordinator, is going to be key in Smith's integration because they've worked together before in Green Bay. That shared experience can significantly accelerate the adaptation process. Second, that the team isn't expecting immediate miracles. They are being realistic about the time. Smith needs to contribute effectively, but here's the problem that nobody is openly discussing: timing. We don't have the luxury of time. Every game from now until the end of the season is crucial for our playoff aspirations. Can we afford the adaptation period Smith will naturally need? Whit mentioned that Smith is working with Daryl Tapp, our defensive line coach, and Ryan Kerrigan, our pass rush specialist. This gives me hope because Kerrigan understands what it takes to succeed in this position in Washington, and Tapp has the technical expertise to help Smith adjust his game to our specific system. I have high expectations that he'll learn the system very quickly, and when we involve him is when he's ready, said Whit. I interpret this as a sign that they're not going to rush Smith. They're going to take the necessary time to ensure he can contribute effectively, not just fill a roster gap. The pressure now completely falls on players like Javonte, Jean-Baptiste, and Jacob Martin to take a massive step forward. These guys are going to have to handle more snaps, more responsibilities, and more attention from rival offensive coordinators who will try to exploit their relative inexperience. Jean-Baptiste, in particular, will be interesting to watch. He has shown flashes of potential, but now needs consistency week after week. Martin, on the other hand, has been a solid but not spectacular player. Can these two elevate their game enough to make up for the loss of Wise? That is literally $1 million question for our season. What worries me most is psychological effect on the entire defensive unit. When you lose a respected veteran like Wise, especially in such a sudden way, it can create doubts in the rest of the group. Younger players might start to wonder if they really have what it takes to compete at the highest level without that veteran presence guiding them. Smith might debut this Sunday against Las Vegas, and if he's ready physically and mentally, we could have a very positive surprise. His experience in big games, his deep knowledge of professional football, and his track record in Green Bay suggests he can be exactly what we need at the perfect moment. But we also have to be realistic about expectations. Smith is not going to be Wise immediately. He'll need time to develop chemistry with his line mates, to fully understand our system's calls and adjustments, and to reach the optimal physical condition needed to play at the highest level week after week. The hard reality is that we lost consistency and leadership in an absolutely critical position, right at the moment when we could least afford it. But it's also true that Smith represents an unexpected opportunity to add veteran experience and talent at a crucial time. The success of our season might now depend on how fast Smith can integrate and contribute effectively. And speaking of absolutely terrible timing for us, after Tucker Kraft made us look like a high school team in week 2, now we must face Brock Bowers, who isn't just one of the most dynamic tight ends in the entire league, but possibly the most troublesome for defenses, already struggling with coverage and tackling. Let me explain why this matchup could be potentially catastrophic for us. Bowers isn't a traditional tight end, and that's precisely why he's going to be a nightmare for our injured defense. In his rookie season, and listen to me because these numbers are absolutely ridiculous, he achieved 112 receptions for 1,194 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Not only did he lead all tight ends in receptions and yards, but those numbers placed him among the best receivers of any position in the entire league. Do you know what it means to catch 112 passes in your rookie season as a tight end? It means you are practically unstoppable in the short and intermediate game, that you have the most reliable hands on the planet, and that your quarterback trusts you as his safety valve in any situation. For such a young player to have that kind of production and confidence is simply extraordinary. In week 1 against Denver, Bowers demonstrated that his rookie season was no fluke. 5 receptions for 103 yards, including some absolutely spectacular plays that reminded everyone why he was considered one of the most special prospects to come out of the draft in recent years. His ability to find soft spots in coverage and his capacity to gain separation both from traditional tight end positions and from the slot is simply elite. In week 2, His numbers dropped considerably. 5 catches, but only 38 yards. But here's the detail everyone is overlooking. He was clearly playing injured. He had knee problems, was wearing a knee brace during the entire game, and still managed 5 receptions. Do you know what that tells me? That even at 60 to 70% of his full capacity, this kid is still productive and dangerous. Joe Witt Jr. was brutally honest about the challenge Bowers presents when he said he's a young, dynamic tight end, and that you have to treat him almost like a receiver. But let me explain why that statement is much more significant than it seems on the surface. In college at Georgia, Bowers lined up as a slot receiver or as an outside receiver on more snaps than he played in the traditional inline tight end position. This positional versatility makes him practically impossible to prepare for defensively because you never know where he's going to be on a given play. Is he going to be blocking inline? Is he going to run a route from the slot? Is he going to be split wide as a number 1 receiver? This unpredictability is what makes him so lethal. This diversity in his route running has continued completely with the Raiders. Offensive coordinator Luke Getsy uses him as a mismatch weapon, taking advantage of his tight end size against smaller safeties and cornerbacks, but also his superior athleticism against slower linebackers. He's the type of player that creates matchup problems no matter how you decide to cover him. And do you know what worries me the most after analyzing our performance against Green Bay? The way Tucker Kraft completely torched us. Kraft burned Bobby Wagner, our most experienced veteran linebacker, on a 57-yard reception where he simply ran past him as if Wagner was standing still. Then, in the same series, he delivered an absolutely devastating stiff arm to Will Harris, our safety. On a 17-yard gain that looked like a Madden highlight, Kraft averaged 12.3 yards after the catch against us. 12.3 yards per catch. Do you know what that means? It means that we weren't just allowing Kraft to catch the ball, but after the catch, we couldn't tackle him effectively. And here's the problem. Bowers is significantly better than Kraft in every aspect of the game. Bowers was specifically known for his YAC, yards after catch, ability coming out of college. In his rookie season, he maintained that reputation completely, leading all tight ends with 596 yards after the catch. Almost 600 YSC yards as a rookie. That means not only does he catch everything thrown his way, but after the catch, he's extremely difficult to tackle. Now combine that with our current problems in secondary coverage. Marshon Lattimore has been significantly struggling with consistency, and Mike Sainristil, although promising, is still adapting to the NFL level. If Bowers lines up as an outside receiver, which he does regularly, these guys are going to be in an almost impossible situation. But do you know what really worries me? Our resurgent run defense problems that were clearly evident at Lambeau Field. Bowers isn't just an elite receiver, but also a very solid blocker. His ability to block effectively in the run game could create additional opportunities for Zamir White and the Las Vegas backfield, adding another problematic dimension to an already complicated matchup. Dan Quinn, our head coach, directly acknowledged the challenge when asked specifically about the Raiders' offense. And there's a lot to like in terms of who they are. And certainly with the running back and the tight end, these are really talented guys, that are young guys on the rise. So we're going to have our hands full. That statement from Quinn tells me the coaching staff is very aware of the danger, but it also suggests they're recognizing this is going to be a significant challenge for our current defensive scheme. We're going to have our hands full isn't exactly the kind of confidence you want to hear from your head coach before a crucial game. The scariest aspect of this is the timing context. With Jaden Daniels out for Week 3, our margin for error on offense narrows dramatically. This means the pressure on the defense to create stops, turnovers, and short fields intensifies exponentially. If Bowers has a day like Kraft did against us, we could be looking at a game that gets out of control quickly. The only little hope we have is Bowers' injury status. He's been limited in practice this week due to ongoing knee issues. He wore a knee brace during the game against the Chargers, and clearly wasn't at 100%. But even if he's at 80% of his capacity, based on what we've seen from our defense, he can still do considerable damage. Here's what really bothers me. We know exactly what Las Vegas is going to do. They're going to put Bowers in motion, use him from multiple positions, create pick plays and confusion in our coverage, and attack the weaknesses we showed against Green Bay. It's like we had the exam with all the answers beforehand, but I'm still not sure we have the players or the scheme to execute the right solutions. Number one goal of our defense this Sunday must be finding a way to slow down Bowers, but that's easier said than done. Do you cover him with a linebacker and hope they can keep up with him in coverage? Do you put an extra safety on the field specifically to help with Bowers? Do you try to be physical with him at the line to disrupt his routes? Every one of those options has potential problems. If you use a linebacker, Bowers is going to win those matchups most of the time. If you bring an extra safety, you become vulnerable against the run or against other receivers. If you try to be physical, Bowers is big and strong enough to handle contact, and you might end up with penalties that give Las Vegas even better field position. The brutal reality is that this matchup comes at the perfect time for Las Vegas and the worst possible time for us. We're wounded defensively, struggling with consistency in coverage, and facing a player who specifically exploits the weaknesses we've shown. If we don't find answers quickly, Bowers could have the kind of game that defines entire seasons. In what can be interpreted as desperate moves or calculated strategy, the Commanders elevated veteran cornerback Antonio Hamilton from the practice squad for the Week 3 game, while simultaneously releasing offensive lineman Nate Herbig from the retired list. These moves, though they may seem minor on the surface, reveal much about the current state of our roster and specific concerns from the coaching staff. Antonio Hamilton, at 32, represents exactly the type of player teams look for when facing specific crises. His career has been a fascinating journey through multiple organizations, and that diverse experience could be exactly what we need at this critical moment. But let me explain why this elevation is more significant than most people will recognize. Hamilton began his NFL career as an undrafted free agent with the Las Vegas Raiders in 2016, signing a modest 3-year contract worth $1.62 million. For a player who wasn't selected in the draft, to make the 53-man roster not just once, but for 2 consecutive seasons with the Raiders, is a significant testament to his ability and professional determination. Do you know what I find most interesting about his story? The way he's navigated the ups and downs of an NFL career. The Raiders released him at the start of the 2018 season, but was immediately claimed off waivers by the New York Giants. That tells me there were enough teams in the league that valued his talent and potential to make a competitive claim. His stint with the Giants was followed by a 1-year contract in 2019. Then he moved to the Kansas City Chiefs in 2020 with another 1-year deal. The ability to continue finding opportunities with competitive teams like the Chiefs suggests that Hamilton isn't just a player filling spaces. He's someone defensive coordinators see as a potential real contributor. His time with the Arizona Cardinals was particularly revealing. He started on the practice squad, but was elevated to the active roster for specific games and later re-signed with the Cardinals on 2 consecutive 1-year contracts. This continuity with an organization suggests that he found a niche and demonstrated consistent value in specific situations. Most recent season with the Atlanta Falcons, where Hamilton appeared in 11 games and recorded 7 total tackles, might be seen as modest production, but I interpret those numbers differently. For a veteran cornerback in a specific role, 7 tackles in 11 games suggests he was fulfilling his assigned responsibilities without making major mistakes that force more tackles or exposure. Now, why did we elevate Hamilton specifically for this game against Las Vegas? I believe there are several strategic reasons that go beyond simply needing additional numbers in the secondary backfield. First, Hamilton has direct experience playing for the Raiders during his early years in the league. He knows the organization, probably has relationships with some coaching staff members or players who are still there, and definitely understands that franchise's mentality and philosophy. That familiarity can be invaluable for providing specific insights to our coaching staff and players. Second, his experience in multiple defensive systems gives him the versatility to quickly adapt to our current scheme. He's played in 3-4 and 4-3 systems, worked with defensive coordinators with different philosophies, and had to learn and execute multiple coverage concepts throughout his career. This adaptability is exactly what you need when making last-minute elevations from the practice squad. Third, and perhaps most importantly, Hamilton represents veteran stability at a time when our secondary coverage has shown worrisome inconsistency. After the problems we saw against Green Bay, especially with tight end coverage and slot receivers working from the slot, we need players who won't make fundamental mental errors at critical moments. Releasing Nate Herbig from the retired list is equally interesting. Herbig had been on our retired list, suggesting he had considered leaving football entirely. Releasing him now to make room for Hamilton tells me the team is prioritizing immediate defense over maintaining potential offensive options for the future. But what specific role will Hamilton play on Sunday? I speculate he'll be used in nickel and dime packages, specifically to help with Brock Bowers' coverage when Las Vegas moves him to the slot or uses him in spread formations. His experience and veteran presence could be crucial for communicating coverage adjustments and ensuring we're in the correct positions. It's also possible Hamilton could be used in special team situations where his experience can be immediately valuable without requiring the same level of integration into the defensive system needed for significant defensive snaps. What worries me about this elevation is what it represents about the current state of our roster. If we're elevating a 32-year-old cornerback from the practice squad for a crucial game, that suggests we have serious concerns about the availability or effectiveness of our current cornerbacks on the 53-man roster. Is Martian Lattimore dealing with something more than just lack of game form? Is Mike Sainristil having more difficulties transitioning to the NFL than we publicly acknowledge? Or are we simply being proactive to ensure we have enough depth to handle the multiple offensive formations Las Vegas will present? The reality is that moves like this last-minute elevations of veteran players specifically for individual matchups can be indicators of emerging crises or intelligent coaching staff being proactive. The difference between those two interpretations will probably be determined by how Hamilton contributes on Sunday, and if these roster moves become a trend or remain unique adjustments. Hamilton may not be a star, but at this moment in our season, we don't need stars everywhere. We need reliable players who can execute their assignments without costly errors and contribute in specific moments when called upon. If Hamilton can provide us that, especially against such a dynamic tight end as Bowers, then this elevation could end up being one of those smart coaching decisions that go unnoticed by the general public but turn out to be crucial for the game's outcome. After analyzing these three stories in detail, I ask you these direct questions that go to the heart of what it really means to be a Washington Commanders fan in 2025. Do you truly have confidence that Preston Smith, after years out of our system and coming from Pittsburgh, can immediately fill the massive void left by Dietrich Wise's season-ending injury? Or are we simply hoping for a miracle because we have no other real options? Do you honestly believe that our secondary defense, which already let Tucker Kraft make them look amateur, can contain Brock Bowers when he is objectively more talented, more versatile, and more dangerous than Kraft? And can they do it while elevating 32-year-old cornerbacks from the practice squad? And about Antonio Hamilton, does his elevation represent smart coaching and meticulous preparation? Or is it a sign of panic because we recognize internally that our current roster isn't prepared for the challenges we face? These aren't easy questions, Commander family, but they are the questions that define entire seasons. This is the week where we discover if we really have what it takes to compete against teams that are specifically built to exploit our weaknesses. If you truly bleed burgundy and gold, if you live and breathe Washington football, then I need you to be brutally honest in the comments. Are you worried about the current state of this team? Or do you still have blind faith that the coaching staff can find magical solutions to real problems of talent and depth. And if this detailed analysis is giving you the real, honest information you need as a true fan, the kind of analysis you won't find on ESPN or mainstream, shows that just want to sell you false optimism, then show your support by subscribing to the channel right now. Give a like if you believe Preston Smith really can be the answer, but comment your real concern if you think we're in more serious trouble. Share this video with other Commander fans who need to hear the unfiltered truth about where we really stand as a team. Because this is more than sports analysis. This is about building a community of fans who understand the game deeply and who don't settle for superficial analysis or empty cheerleading. We need fans who can handle the truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. And remember always, hail to the Redskins.